Welcome to Stories from New Eden, the podcast where history, myth, and forgotten truths converge among the stars. I'm your host, Zal Arbosa, and here we dive deep into the lost archives, blacksite reports, and whispered legends of the EVE online universe. From the rise of ancient civilizations to the silent horror of wormhole space, each episode uncovers the hidden narratives that shape New Eden, the truths behind the empires, the lies buried in the ruins, and the echoes left behind by those who vanished. Whether you're a hardened capsuleer or a curious newcomer, this is your gateway to the lore that breathes life into the void. This is Stories from New Eden. Let's begin. The Forgotten Fifth, Shadows of a Lost Empire. The coronation of Empress Jamil Serim I was not just a holy event, it was a celestial spectacle. Above Amarr Prime, the orbit lanes were choked with ships, from golden cathedral barges of the Theology Council to hulking Navy capital vessels in formation. Every corporation and noble house with a scrap of influence had come to pay tribute. Traffic control systems were stretched to the breaking point. Orbital tethers blinked with urgent crimson as their queues overflowed. Freelancers in shuttles jostled for clearance alongside delegation yachts. A trio of Gallente diplomatic cruisers waited 2 hours for docking priority, delayed by a minor standoff between two Cunid envoys over orbital alignment protocols. No one cared. It was the Empress's day, and inefficiency was the price of grandeur. Far above the ceremonial arcologies and layered traffic spirals, Orbital Vigil 10 floated in patient observation. It was one of 29 classified Imperial security platforms distributed across the throne world's geosynchronous orbit. Most were silent, automated sentinels. Vigil 10, however, had a crew. Inside its armored viewport chamber, Jovian Siren, a security analyst of middling rank and exceptional paranoia, monitored the impossible traffic feed scrolling across 6 overlapping holoscreens. Thousands of vessels, each tagged, flagged, or filtered. Jovian's job wasn't to control the chaos. That was the domain of AI overseers and field commanders. His role was more niche, pattern recognition, watching for outliers, anomalies, ghosts in the data. And today, the ghosts were busy. 3 unfiled jump echoes, he muttered into his report log. 1 cloaked vessel ping on the outer radial. Null result on silhouette. 1 spike on EM spectrum. 39 seconds dissipated. The holofeed stuttered under the load. He swiped it clear and focused on the main orbital map. Hundreds of Amarr Navy ships locked in elegant formation. Arching over the station in synchronized orbital drift, they formed the symbol of House Sarum across the upper hemisphere. Magnificent, intimidating. Still, it wasn't the Navy that worried him. It was the empty pockets of space in between. Then it happened. A new object blinked onto the outer fringe of the proximity field. No beacon ID, no transponder, and no recorded arrival vector. Just there, suddenly present, like it had always been, and was only now permitting itself to be noticed. Jovian blinked. The object was a ship, certainly, slender, curved, crafted with such alien symmetry that it barely read as manufactured. Its black alloy hull shimmered in faint pulses, defying the ambient starlight. No drive trails, no comms burst, no IFF handshake. He tapped a series of overrides into the console. Vigil 10 to command. We have an unregistered vessel at Vector 061, static position. No weapons systems detected, yet. A pause, then static, then something stranger. An override code stamped with a deep-level Imperial seal. Acknowledged, Vigil 10. The guest is expected. Do not engage. Expected? Revian's stomach tightened. The phrase wasn't protocol. It wasn't Navy. It was something else. Something from the archives. He'd seen the term before in a DED black file years ago. Expected observer presence. Priority level. Jovian. He leaned forward and stared at the thing. It didn't move. It didn't need to. The longer it hung there, the more wrong it seemed. Light bent subtly around its form. Shadows clung to it like mist. His ship's sensor sweep returned contradictory data. Negative radiation output, localized gravitational eddies, brief distortions in thermometric readings, as if the space it occupied didn't quite agree with being space at all. Then the station lights dimmed. A momentary flicker. Not a loss of power, but a hesitation in reality. And then, something even stranger. Every screen in the chamber flashed black, then white, then displayed a spiral glyph unfolding into fractal curls. A double helix, a triangle, a cube, then nothing. Revian's breath caught in his throat. The emblem was unmistakable. It was the mark from the blacksite logs, the symbol burned into dead relay stations, the icon etched into abandoned probes found adrift in Anoikes, the glyph of the Jove. When the lights returned, the ship was gone. Not warped out, not cloaked, gone, like it had been redacted from space. The proximity field read normal again. No grav signatures, no mass distortion, just a clean, healthy system, as if it had never arrived. Revian sat back in his chair, his heart hammering in his chest. Below him, the Amarr Navy continued its parade. Jamil's voice echoed across the system on ceremonial wideband. Solemn, regal, practiced. The coronation was proceeding perfectly. But up here, above the pageantry and prayer, something else had happened. Something unseen by trillions. Something only a few would understand. The Jove had come to the coronation, not to speak, not to act, but to witness. And in doing so, they reminded the Empire, reminded everyone that they were still here, still watching, still waiting in the quiet folds of space. Revian's siren closed the report log without saving. Some things didn't belong in the record. Before the rise of the four great empires of New Eden, there were others. Some were shattered in the aftermath of the Eve Gate's collapse. Others vanished beneath the waves of time, their legacies lost in silence. But one civilization did not vanish entirely. It lingered, watched, intervened when it chose to. Its technology shaped the world we know. Its decline shaped the world we inherited. They were called the Jove. To some, they were gods. To others, ghosts. They were not a myth. Their ships have been seen. Their agents have spoken. Their space, Jovian space, still exists in the universe. Few pilots have ever laid eyes on it, and fewer still return to tell the tale. In the centuries since the collapse, the Jove have operated like a shadow empire, offering gifts of technology, issuing warnings through intermediaries, and shaping events far beyond what most in New Eden understand. And yet, they remain almost completely removed from the affairs of the empires. Detached, disappearing, fading. This episode, we trace the arc of that forgotten fifth civilization, from the rise of the first Jovian Empire to their final disappearance from known space, from the heights of genetic mastery to the depths of existential decay. We'll examine the evidence they left behind, the stories recorded in the EVE Chronicles, and the unsettling glimpses that still surface in our skies. Were the Jove a warning, or a blueprint? And why, after millennia of shaping New Eden's future, did they choose to vanish? Part 1. The Rise of the Jove. Long before the 4 great empires of New Eden were born, there was a people who endured, not through brute force nor divine mandate, but through sheer intellectual will. The Jove did not rise from the ashes of collapse. They prepared for it. When the Eve gate shut, leaving Earth and the colonies forever severed, and darkness fell across the stars, the Jove did not burn with the rest. They observed, calculated, and survived. Though the records are fragmentary, scraped from dying databanks and forgotten satellites, most agree that the Jove were far enough from the gate's singularity to avoid complete annihilation. Their colonies, distant and independent, preserved a technological baseline lost elsewhere. While the rest of humanity fell into regression, the Jove's flame dimmed but never extinguished. The First Jovian Empire. Survival and the Seeds of Thought. Historians call it the First Jovian Empire, but it was not an empire in the classical sense. It was a network of surviving enclaves, loosely aligned by culture and necessity. Some scholars estimate it lasted for 3 millennia, an age of endurance, not expansion. It is during this uncertain period that many believe the society of conscious thought first emerged. While its exact founding date is unknown, one prevailing theory holds that the society arose as a philosophical and scientific refuge, gathering the last survivors of the old world's intellectual elite. The society taught that knowledge itself had memory, that thoughts, properly preserved, could outlive flesh. They believed that survival wasn't merely about shielding oneself from entropy. It was about understanding entropy. One recovered Societe aphorism from this period reads, "Understanding is the first step towards survival." Another, carved into the inner hull of an abandoned deep void monastery, warns, "Where mind ends, history begins." It is speculated that during this period, the society developed the earliest precursors to what would later become memory transference systems and neural cloning templates. These weren't technologies for immortality yet, but for continuity, a means of passing wisdom through more than ink and voice. Their influence, though never absolute, guided the First Empire into a period of stability. They served as archivists, philosophers, and spiritual guides, a silent hand on the tiller during humanity's most disoriented hours. The Second Jovian Empire. Ascendancy and division. With stability came progress. The Second Jovian Empire, thought to have lasted another 2,500 to 3,000 years, saw the Jove enter their most transformative phase. They were no longer reacting to collapse. They were re-engineering what it meant to be human. One prominent theory, drawn from disputed CONCORD digests and corroborated by Societe internal memos, suggests that the Jove reorganized themselves into what became known as thought castes. These castes were not determined by wealth, birth, or physical form, but by neurological resonance, groupings based on personality structure, emotive balance, and cognitive processing. Each caste pursued its own domain. Rationalist enclaves governed logistical infrastructure and strategic modeling. Empathic branches curated art, memory, and interrelation. Intuitive collectives drove theoretical science and abstract philosophy. These divisions weren't meant to separate, but to harmonize. It is said that communication between castes was so refined, it approached telepathy, with common cognitive languages developing between groups. Even ethics were modular, tuned to caste consensus, not enforced by decree. In one rare surviving quote from Theodicy, an EVE Chronicle, in which Jove speaks directly, a Jovian agent explains, "We moved beyond hierarchy a long time ago. Conflict is a redundancy of primitive biology. We have taught our minds to whisper, not scream. but ambition breeds instability. As Jovian experimentation intensified, especially in areas like self-directed evolution and personality migration, subtle cracks appeared. Minds began to loop, fragment, or collapse under the weight of engineered identity. These irregularities evolved into what would later be called the Jovian Disease. No single trigger has ever been confirmed, but the consensus points to the consequence of unchecked introspective recursion. The Jove, in refining themselves, had carved too deeply into the psyche. Thought casts that once fostered creativity now bred existential dissonance. Emotional groups succumbed to suicidal despair. Logic-driven enclaves fell into catatonia. Identity degraded. From this era comes a grim phrase, once cited in a classified SOCT training archive. Perfection is not without cost. The mind, like bone, can be honed until it snaps. Source: Blacksite Intercept Archive K712. Internal memo recovered from shattered Jovian interface drone. MMD-3B system. By the end of the Second Empire, the Jove had become a civilization on the edge of collapse, not through war or disaster, but through inner erosion. The Third Jovian Empire, hospice of the mind. As the disease spread and entire enclaves fell silent, the Jove reorganized what remained of themselves into what historians now call the Third Empire. But it was not an empire in the classical sense. It was a hospice, a quiet, measured retreat from ambition, a final stewarding of what little wholeness remained. Their gates were sealed, their systems dimmed, diplomatic channels were cut or made cryptic. But here and there the Jove still reached out, quietly, precisely. They appeared at inflection points in New Eden's history, during the early capsuleer trials, at the foundation of CONCORD, during Amarr imperial ceremonies. In one of the last public transmissions, a Jovian envoy named Misu Banya told imperial diplomats, "We are fading, yes, but our mistakes are written into your future. We do not ask forgiveness, only memory." What little remained of their technology trickled into human hands, through the society, through capsuleer research, and through unexplained shipwrecks and encounters. It is widely believed that much of the capsuleer interface is derived from adapted Jovian tech, simplified, stripped of its original intricacy, but still impossibly advanced by contemporary standards. Then, without warning, they vanished. No formal farewell, no empire-wide collapse, just the long silence of locked gates and unresponsive systems. Jovian space became unreachable, and their stars grew dim. Today, the Jove survive not in presence, but in echoes, in the technology that defines the capsuleer era, in the implants that whisper into our thoughts, in the society of conscious thought, which still operates quietly in the shadows of empire, and in the stillness of the systems they left behind, where observatories drift in dead orbit, watching nothing, waiting for no one. Their end wasn't a cataclysm, it was a choice, a retreat, a warning. Their story remains incomplete, not because they were forgotten, but because some knowledge chooses when it wants to be found. Part 2. The Legacy and Decline. In the final centuries of their presence in New Eden, the Jove no longer seemed like visionaries. They looked like survivors, brilliant, withered, and inward-turning. Their brilliance remained unmatched, their knowledge unquestioned. But something fundamental had begun to unravel. It was called the Jovian Disease, but it was more than a pathology. It was a fate encoded into their genomes, the terminal cost of centuries of tinkering with the essence of self. No one truly knows when it began. Some theories suggest it first emerged in isolated outposts of the Second Empire, invisible amid the controlled chaos of experimentation. But by the Third Empire, it was epidemic, an insidious psychological degeneration that no caste, no consciousness configuration could escape. It wasn't madness, it was collapse from within. Jovians afflicted by the disease experienced unbearable depression, so severe that entire communities chose euthanasia over existence. Their enhanced neurobiology, designed to process abstract thought, may have become too sensitive to existential weight. Death wasn't a glitch, it became a preference. As one Jovian in the chronicle, Jovian Wetgrave, laments, "I have not felt joy for over 50 years. I have not cried for longer. My dreams are silent." Another passage from the same source echoes the existential burden of their advanced minds. To see all potential futures and yet find none worth embracing. That is the silent prison of the mind, perfected beyond purpose. Faced with terminal decline, the Jove withdrew from the galactic stage. Gates to their core regions went dark. Outposts were abandoned. And across sectors like Curse, where early Jovian contact with humanity had once been common, their presence simply faded. Though they vanished from direct involvement, their advanced technology and philosophical legacies quietly influenced the wider galaxy. Imprints left not in open conflict, but in the hidden foundations of capitular society. By this point, Jovian technology had long surpassed their own ability to emotionally relate to it. Their minds were enhanced, but no longer human. Their memories were shareable, but no longer lived. Their ships were seamless integrations of cognition and design, vessels that responded as much to intuition as they did to controls. But the paradox of perfection had taken root. What happens when you no longer fear death, nor value pain? When all experience becomes memory, and all memory becomes data, you drift. And the Jove drifted not into oblivion, but into abstraction, a philosophical collapse as profound as any biological one. The disease was just the visible tip of a much deeper erosion, the loss of desire. There are no monuments marking the fall of the Jove, no final battles, no desperate radio transmissions or dying cries into the void. Just a long silence, a closing of gates, a turning away from the stars they had once helped shape. And in their absence, only the echoes remain, encoded into our implants, imprinted on capsuleer doctrine, and hidden in the structure of things we take for granted. They were not defeated. They chose to leave. Classified blacksite report, Jovian Research Outpost, Sector Curse. Date, classified. Compiled by Dr. Ilara Voss, CONCORD Intelligence. Subject, anomalous psychological decline in Jovian subjects. Observations at multiple Jovian research outposts indicate a progressive degeneration in cognitive and emotional faculties among subjects afflicted with what has been designated the Jovian Disease. Symptoms include profound apathy, social withdrawal, and a pervasive existential malaise. The affliction appears genetic in origin, but is exacerbated by the elevated cognitive enhancements typical of Jovian neurobiology. Entire enclaves have been documented to enter voluntary euthanasia protocols, effectively choosing cessation over continued existence. This behavior suggests the disease affects not only physical and mental health, but also undermines intrinsic survival imperatives. Attempts to analyze Jovian technological artifacts reveal a culture deeply intertwined with their bioengineering. Machines and minds are inseparable. However, This symbiosis may have contributed to their philosophical collapse, as subjects increasingly disengaged from experiential reality. The implications for galactic civilization are profound. Understanding the Jovian decline offers insight into the dangers of unchecked biological augmentation and the potential existential risks of perfection. Part 3. Contact and influence. Though the Jove largely withdrew from open contact with the galaxy, their influence quietly persisted, like ghostly ripples beneath the surface of New Eden's turbulent history. From behind veils of secrecy, the Jove shared fragments of their vast knowledge with CONCORD, the galaxy's fragile peacekeeper. These exchanges were never public, never fully understood, yet they seeded innovations that shaped capsuleer technology and galactic governance. Among their more tangible legacies is the formation of the Directive Enforcement Department, or DED, a covert CONCORD division, tasked with investigating the shadows of New Eden. It is whispered that the DED's genesis bore the fingerprints of Jovian insight, guiding their watchful eye over emergent threats like rogue factions, unregulated wormhole explorers, and mysterious phenomena. As Theodicy records, the whispers of the Jove still echo through the halls of CONCORD, unseen hands shaping the fragile order from the void. Speaking of mysteries, the Jove issued cryptic warnings about the Triglavians long before capsuleers encountered the terrifying incursions of wormhole space. Through veiled messages and subtle signals, they hinted at dangers lurking beyond known star systems, riddles wrapped in enigma, only now beginning to unfold. Why would the Jove warn others of the Triglavians? Perhaps they recognized in these newcomers a reflection of their own fate. Beings emerging from the abyssal void, shaped by extra-dimensional forces beyond ordinary comprehension. The warnings may have been a rare act of concern, or perhaps a calculated gesture, a subtle test for those who would heed their counsel. From the Selin incident comes this chilling note. Before the stars themselves were pierced by Triglavian shadows, the Jove Watchers sent warnings, oblique, inscrutable, yet filled with portent. Their enigmatic vessels, such as the elusive Enigma frigate and the uniquely crafted Jove shuttle, remain objects of obsession among capsuleers. These ships are not mere relics. They are symbols of lost knowledge and unmatched technology, coveted by those who seek to glimpse the secrets of a vanished civilization. The Jove observers, those silent sentinels glimpsed at the edges of major events, have stirred endless debate. Why do they appear at moments like the Amarrian coronation, watching but never intervening? Some speculate these watchers are archivists, collecting data on key turning points. Others believe they are guardians, silently ensuring events unfold according to some inscrutable design. Or perhaps, like ancient beings who have transcended conventional existence, they observe out of a detached curiosity, witnesses to the unfolding tapestry of New Eden. From the Triglavian prelude, in the quiet abyss, the observers sail, Jove sentinels amidst chaos, silent and unseen, bearing witness to the end of things. The Jove's contact may have faded into legend, but their influence endures, a quiet hand guiding the threads of history from the shadows, leaving capsuleers to wonder what part of that design they themselves play. Part 4. Disappearance and Theories. The Jove, the ancient masters of New Eden, vanished from the galaxy's stage as quietly as they had once risen. Their empire space, once a realm of unparalleled science and mystery, now lies abandoned and inaccessible. Vast regions of Jovian space are sealed behind enigmatic dark gates. ancient constructs that bar entry to all but the most elite and skilled capsuleers. Only a handful of the most seasoned pilots have ever glimpsed the eerie, silent expanse beyond these thresholds. For them, flying in Jovian space is both a privilege and a journey into the unknown, where forgotten wonders and lurking dangers coexist. What became of the Jove? Official records offer no definitive answers. Instead, we find tantalizing hints and whispered theories, each more enigmatic than the last. One of the most intriguing sources of insight into Jovian secrets is the ARC project, an ongoing multi-faction initiative dedicated to exploring and understanding the remnants of Jove technology and their abandoned domains. The ARC project brings together the brightest minds and most daring capsuleers to probe ancient Jovian structures, decrypt cryptic data streams, and uncover connections that stretch across time. ARC project findings have revealed unsettling parallels between Jovian constructs and the technologies of the Triglavian collective, an enigmatic force emerging from the abyssal void. This nexus between the Jove and Triglavians hints at a deeper relationship, suggesting that the Triglavians may be an evolutionary offshoot, a successor civilization, or perhaps even a manifestation of the Jove's own transcendence. Some theorize that the Jove folded themselves into the society of conscious thought, merging individual wills into a vast, singular consciousness that transcends physical form. Others propose that the Jove transcended biological existence altogether, entering realms beyond the material plane, leaving their corporeal selves behind. Yet others speculate more boldly that the Jove were replaced by something else entirely, that their disappearance was not an end, but a transformation into the very entities that now challenge New Eden's fragile order. Classified blacksite log, ARC project, Jovian space anomaly. Date, classified. Operative, unknown. Location, Jovian outpost Gamma 7, sector curse. Subject, unexplained energy signatures and structural instability. During a routine sweep of abandoned Jovian outposts within the curse sector, ARC field operatives detected anomalous energy fluctuations inconsistent with known Jovian technology profiles. Initial scans suggested dormant systems had reactivated spontaneously, emitting subspace distortions reminiscent of early Triglavian spatial signatures. Attempts to access mainframe archives were met with severe encryption, layered with adaptive countermeasures suggesting an advanced AI presence, possibly residual Jovian consciousness fragments, or a containment protocol. Operatives observed ethereal light patterns within decayed chamber walls, patterns resembling encoded data streams, but lacking any current readable format. A particular concern is the sudden degradation of environmental controls, leading to structural destabilization. Field teams report a creeping sense of disorientation and psychological distress, symptoms paralleling descriptions associated with the Jovian disease. Recommendation: immediate withdrawal and quarantine of the site. Further investigation requires enhanced mental resilience protocols and deep archival decryption capabilities. Whatever the truth, the silence of Jovian space echoes louder than any battle cry. No grand cataclysm heralded their fall. No desperate last transmissions plead for aid. Only locked gates. Only emptiness. And the lingering question: did the Jove leave of their own volition? Or were they overcome by forces beyond comprehension? From the rise and brilliance of the Jovian Empires, through their haunting legacy of decline and withdrawal, to the subtle yet profound ways they shaped New Eden's fate from the shadows, This journey reveals a civilization both awe-inspiring and tragic. We've explored their unparalleled intellect and the devastating Jovian disease that fractured their society. We've uncovered whispers of their secret contact with CONCORD, their cryptic warnings about the Triglavians, and the silent watchers who appear at history's pivotal moments. Finally, we confronted the mysteries behind their disappearance, questions that remain unanswered, locked away behind dark gates and encrypted archives. The Jove were never simply a lost empire. They are a living echo, a shadow cast across the stars, reminding us that even the most advanced civilizations may face their own twilight. Were they victims of their own perfection, or did they transcend into something beyond our understanding? Could their fate be a warning for those who seek to push beyond the limits of existence? In the last episode of this pre-Empire arc, we will dive into the enigmatic origins of the Sleepers, discover the secrets of the mysterious civilization, whose ruins litter wormhole space and whose legacy still haunts capsuleers today. You've been listening to Stories from New Eden, where the past isn't dead, only buried. If you enjoyed this journey through lost empires, fractured truths, and the shadows of the cluster, be sure to follow and share the podcast. Every transmission helps others find their way through the dark. New episodes drop every week, uncovering deeper layers of EVE's hidden history. From erased blacksite logs to the forbidden lore that empires try to silence. Until next time, fly safe, keep your senses sharp, and remember, in New Eden, something is always watching.